Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of That Early Childhood Nerd. I'm Heather Burnt-Santy, and joined on this episode by Mike Huber.
Hello.
So we're doing an experiment on this episode. Mike and I have been talking about doing some episodes where he sort of prompts me to go a little deeper on something, about something, to connect it to my actual practice and talk about that. Am I getting it right, Mike?
Yeah.
So it seems like you're going to take something from a previous episode and just ask me some things to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Sort of going deeper. So I think I'm probably not the only one when I listen, like wondering, so how does that affect you? Like, what do you do in a class? If I was going to go watch you.
Yeah.
But I see, she's read a lot of Alfie Kohn. Or whatever. That's what I was thinking of. Mm-hmm. That's my idea. And thinking of it, I do coaching is what I mostly do during the day with teachers. And so as much as I bring reading in to my coaching, like, here, read this.
Yeah.
It's usually a short excerpt, or I even create bullet points for them so you don't have to read a book. Mm-hmm. But what's mostly important is, okay, you've read that, but now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Classroom.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be fun.
But it is an experiment too. I have no idea where it's going to go yet.
Yeah. And I don't know beforehand what the topic's going to be.
Yeah, we did discuss ahead of time if you wanted to know or not. I'm pretty sure you said you didn't want to know.
Yeah.
It'd be okay not knowing.
Yeah. I was talking to Steve. We were having our coffee out on the porch this morning, and I was like, I'm a little bit nervous. And he's like, you're going to have opinions. Like, you're going to have a connection. So,
well, and I was going to say that, you can also look at it in your everyday life too.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about you and Steve, or you and your kids, or whatever, that works also. Because it may bring up, and I don't want to do it where you're the only one on the spot. Like, I feel like I have to also share what I do. So.
It will still be a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm mostly thinking about the Alfie Kohn episode, and I just re-listened to it a little while ago at twice the speed, which I have to say, listening to you, Richard, and Lisa at double speed was like a little insane.
I can imagine.
And I mean, there were, Liz and Emma were there too, but you three just sped up. It's quite something. And it may get into some of Bev Boz's ideas too, because I really wanted to focus on the praise part of Kohn's work. I was trying to see if there were other things, but it felt like it kept coming back to praise in terms of the reflection on your own practice. So I could go two ways with this. Part of it I'm wondering, because I assume with your college students, you have to give them grades.
Yes.
And yet, and I think you even made a reference to Alfie Kohn when you were grading their work, or I can't remember. Or no, you were going to give yourself a reward.
Yeah.
Finishing the grading. Yeah. So it was like a double, breaking the Alfie Kohn rules, but
it's a do as I say, not as I do situation.
Exactly. So maybe why don't we start there? So how do you rectify that in your mind?
Well, so honestly, just in terms, so I teach at a community college, and they're early childhood education students, and I'm just on my third semester of doing it. So I'm learning about grading and that kind of thing. But I think that if it were up to me, I wouldn't do grades, because it seems to me that if we're really all there to learn, then doing the work and having the conversations about the work is where that learning happens. And so for example, this week, they had to turn in a reflection based on a video that they watched. And so they turned it in midnight Sunday. That's when it's due. I'm grading it Monday and Tuesday, and I'm putting comments in the paper. And they're just conversational comments. I mean, some are sort of redirecting or challenging, but mostly they're just sort of trying to make it a dialogue as much as I can in this setting. And I know that they're not going to go back and look at that once they see the grade is in, their assignment's done, and they're moving on to the next thing. So that's really tricky for me. Mm-hmm. so I guess I reconcile it by, I have to give these grades. That's a requirement. But I'm a super easy grader.
Yeah. I think people like us tend to be, because we don't really value the grade, but we don't want to punish anyone, like literally make their life harder because.
Right. Yeah. So I'm trying to find ways within the grading system to make it more of a dialogue and a discussion.
Yeah.
And so I do my weekly video lecture, and I said, please, if you have the time, go back and look at the comments I made. I said, I know that it's done and it's off your checklist, but if you're really here to learn and we're really valuing the ideas that we are practicing with in that assignment, then it has to go beyond the due date,
right,
and the grade in the grade book. So that's
that makes me
trying to figure that out. And I want to make sure that feedback is not just good job, nice paper.
Right. Yeah. A star.
Right. Yeah. So it's just what Alfie has challenged me to do with children as well, is it's not about me feeling good because I said good job and them feeling good because they got a good job. It's me really telling them specifically what pieces I found interesting or made me wonder, or that I'd like them to think more about. And I think that's all coming from Alfie.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make me, I haven't taught at the higher ed level yet. And part of the reason I haven't tried that is that whole thing of grading and, having these assignments that are due, just kind of, I haven't figured out how to reconcile it. Mm-hmm. That, and I don't want to be busy at night. So
yeah.
There's a combination there, but something that happened to me, I remember my mind was first blown, pre Alfie Kohn reading, but just things that made me think that. Brother is older than me and went to college. In his first year, he did an art history class, and they took a test, after the unit, whatever. And then the teacher handed back their tests with marked which ones were wrong and said, you can turn them in again tomorrow. You can take these home and look up the answers and just write them in, and you'll get the grade that at the end, and I remember kind of being confused because I'm in high school still where everything's grades. And it was like, and my brother's like, well, he said, he wanted us to learn the material. So if there's something I didn't know, he wants me to go back and look it up again.
Right.
And it's like, oh, right. So the actual goal is to learn things? Wait, why was that such a revolutionary idea? And yet
right.
Like,
that's what I think a lot when I talk to people about, especially praise and rewards and punishments, is like, why is this such a controversial idea?
Right.
But it's cultural a lot. But I think we can tie into Alfie's work about competition and fairness.
Yeah. That was like next on my list.
Oh, okay. Well, then go.
But no, I'd like to see how do you tie that in?
Well, I just was thinking, so a lot of this thinking is really new for my husband too. Mm-hmm. And, he's done college and has his MBA, and, it's all very competitive.
Yeah.
And most schooling is, we're just trained that way. So the idea of being an easy grader or accepting late work is sometimes really hard for him and for students in the class, because it doesn't seem fair that the ones, I was a high achiever student, mostly out of stubbornness and ego. So for me to put all the work in to get it done on time and meet the requirements, it doesn't seem fair that the student who struggled a little bit or turned it in late or didn't quite understand the assignment to get, to not lose a bunch of points or to get another chance.
Right.
But we have to reframe it as our goal is learning.
Right.
Not winning.
This also gets in the myth of the spoiled child too, right?
Yeah.
Like, wait, I deserve this, but that person doesn't.
Yeah, right? It's capitalism, man.
Yeah. And I think it's a scarcity mentality, right? That only one person can get this, or only the top 10% can get recognized, and the rest is for them or whatever.
Yeah. Like, so, I had a student one week who And my students are mixed group. It's almost all women. I think I've had one man in class in my 3 semesters. Most of them are currently working with young children, but then some are just 18 and trying to figure out what they want to do.
Right.
So there's a mix there too. But so I had one assignment, and it was to watch an interview that I had done with a parent about a specific topic, and then just write a reflection piece about it. What did you wonder? What did you like? What do you question? Is there anything you disagree with? And just process the information.
Sure.
And it was clear that this one person turning in the assignment had not really watched the video. Like she was writing about what she thought the topic could be, but not mentioning any specifics from the video.
Right.
And so that wasn't the assignment, but she still was processing information that was sort of on topic. So, of course I did the obligatory, make sure you read the assignment instructions before you do it. But then I also commented on the thoughts that she brought out in her piece and tried to connect it to what I expected. So it would have been very easy to say, no, you lose this one.
Right.
Or, here's your punishment for not doing it right. But my goal is to help them practice with these ideas. So I'm not going to shut that down.
Right. And that brings up, so more thinking about the system then that you're in, right? Because it seems like that conversation, if there was time given to that, of like not trying to cover more content, but trying to have more reflective conversations with the students, someone like that could have learned a lot from, and hopefully still did, from what you did.
Yeah.
But it seems like we want to, like, here's the curriculum that you have to teach, cram all this in.
Right.
And I mean, I just think so if my teachers, when I'm coaching them, it's much less about, and there are times I'm like trying to teach them all these things, like we're going accreditation renewal right now. So it's like, there's all these things you're not doing right now that you have to do in the next 6 months, right? When they come, you got to be doing it.
Yeah.
And yet I can't cram all that in. I have to choose something that I feel like will apply to everything in some way, and really be able to talk to them and go through, so when you did that change, did you see how the kids, weren't asking you all the time what's next because they could look?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they became more independent or whatever. But having those conversations about that, then they might say, I should do that over here too.
Yeah.
I could change what I do in a different area. But it's like slowing down, I feel like, because I feel like in the classroom, I bet your classroom feels, when you work with young children, slowed down more than what some people might.
I hope so.
I don't even know what people think, and you're with toddlers, is that right?
Not anymore. I'm in preschool, yeah.
Okay, good. So if you're preschool, then you're getting them ready for school, right? So you're cramming everything in.
Wrong. But so I'm thinking about when I was a center director too, how this sort of direction we're going with Alfie's stuff fit there, and my meetings with individual teachers, which I saw as precious because you don't always get that time, were very much just reflection, and they would talk to me and I would ask a question that I hoped took it deeper or offer an example or something to keep the conversation going, and it wasn't top down. But what, as a center director, what drove me crazy, Alfie Kohn wise, is whenever it was like staff appreciation or of course we can have fun days and bring in all the brownies and I'll eat them and that's fine. Especially Annie Buckles, she brought the best brownies. But anyway, where I was going with that, I think,
I hope she got a raise.
She was a parent. She was
a parent. Okay, well,
she was treated her kid better. Us. Yeah, we did. Yeah, definitely. Hers was the favorite. No. But anyway, stuff around staff appreciation, I think, fits this conversation too.
Yeah.
I mean, the hard thing is when you ask staff what they want, a lot of times the answer is thank you notes and pats on the back and parties. But what Alfie is telling us is that doesn't really incentivize what we're, or show real appreciation. So I sort of tried to keep that in mind when I was having those reflective conversations with teachers too, and work authentic, relevant appreciation into those conversations. and hope that eventually that would become more meaningful than the brownies in the break room to mixed success.
Can you give an example of that?
It felt more ethical to me. So, it might be something as easy as, not even easy, but something like a teacher coming in and we're talking about, there was the week before when we met, there was a behavior that was hard for her to deal with. And we talked it through. And then she comes in the next week and I ask how that is going. And she tells me the changes that she made or just the things she sees differently with the child. And then I make the connection and I'm like, see, last week you wanted to try this and you tried it and it's working and that's awesome. And so it's specifically tied to meaningful work that they've done.
Yeah.
And not just shallow. Because I know when I'm not really appreciated, but a boss gives me a card, like I don't want to insult people's intelligence.
Right.
But it's a hard balance when that's what they, are
and to me, expect. So I feel like when I receive a card, well, one, if there's like a family situation that happened, when my mother died last year, like getting cards from people, that felt authentic.
Right.
Or sometimes once in a while, just during this whole COVID thing, we were open for essential workers and it was stressful and things. And one day, this one teacher who makes cards, just had a card in his desk and it was just like, have a great day. And it was that one, when it was just unexpected and oh, she meant that. And she just spent, the last week making these cards, right?
Yeah.
Like little, things that's 3D, like.
Yeah.
I think, so it was just like, that was real. But then, there is the birthday card and everyone writing in, thanks so much for the work you do. And so those ones definitely feel like obligatory. Maybe that's part of it.
Or an I appreciate you card where everybody gets a card on the same day. So I'm definitely not saying that it's a bad thing to write your staff or somebody a note of appreciation.
Right, but that can't be.
But it's what your
where it ends.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not the only thing. And if your intent is to manipulate them in some way, it's sort of false appreciation.
Well, it's interesting though, because I feel like our the senior leadership, like we're a bigger agency, right? Therapies and all these things. So, but the leadership up high, because they just kind of look at numbers, they don't know teachers individually, and they certainly know the teachers do work and good work and appreciate them genuinely.
Yeah.
But in terms of what they see, they think of it as retention, right?
Right.
How do you keep staff around? What are the things that are going to help? And so we do get a budget for that, right? And it was that idea of do we use it for, and so we do some things, and it is usually around having money. So when something happens to a person, they have, a miscarriage, a parent, things like that, we have money to do something for the person.
Sure.
And then the next thing we did was things like we had a book club, right? So, I think the nerd in you is going to appreciate it, but it was, you're going to, who wants to get together and talk about early childhood? And now we have one around, you get 4 choices: book, movie, article, or podcast around white privilege and racial.
Okay. Ooh, that sounds like a fun way to do it.
So that's what we're doing now. But, but just that idea of we do think of you as professionals, and it's funny because higher ups are kind of looking at it as, well, this will mean that people will stay.
Yeah.
But what it turns out is it's the specific, trying to think of what a word Alfie Kohn would use. I can't remember. Acknowledging people for what they actually did.
Yeah.
Connected this to this, and that's your practice, right?
Yeah. I think about one agency that I worked at that had a lot of turnover, because we all do. But what the teachers were saying, what the people in the classrooms were saying was, we have so many challenging behaviors and we don't feel like we're equipped or supported to deal with that. And the response was, teachers are frustrated. We should get them some cool t-shirts and let them wear t-shirts on Fridays. It's not the
right. That's a different thing. Yeah, although it's interesting that challenging behavior was another direct way I saw maybe going in your own classroom. If you had a child with challenging behaviors, I kept hearing, the carrot and stick.
Yeah.
In the podcast. And I was thinking about, as a coach, when people have a child that's like, has some behaviors that they can't figure out, it's like, it's like the teacher's like, so essentially what's the carrot?
Right.
Like, what's the one thing I do and then everything will be fine? Yeah. And I can understand the stress, the person's going through. Yeah. I worked 1 week in a classroom this summer. It was the first time in 3 years that I've been in the classroom that much. And there was a child that was like, she definitely was making it more difficult for me. And it was a school age room. So it's like,
oh boy, that's hard.
I've never worked with before, so I'm like, oh, what do I do with a 7-year-old? But I can understand wanting, like, what's the one thing I can do?
Right.
But honestly, what helped for that week, and I think for a little while after, was me just talking about, having conversations with her and appreciating, what is she trying to do?
Uh-huh.
You want to make sure people, yeah. You want to make sure people know that, it upsets you when you hear someone call your brother, whatever
it was,
your brother or whatever it is. And that's okay. You can be mad. Mm-hmm. What I'll let you do is, hit them, steal their toys,
Yeah.
All those things. But having those conversations over and over, eventually, by the end of the week, she's talking to me like, I don't like when they say that about me.
Yeah.
But that was the thing. There wasn't an easy answer. And it's so hard. And the funny thing was, the teacher who had been asking me, I was co-teaching with that week, I hadn't even thought of it as coaching. I was just subbing because we don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
Just bringing new adults. He was just like, oh, that, like, thanks for, like, I really kind of saw how to deal with this behavior. It's like,
right. I think there's a difference between them coming into our office and asking, how do I do this? And we have the conversation, but then the fact that you're in there and they're seeing you try the things that you've been talking to them about maybe makes a big difference. Or just, having that pressure off of them to be the one with the answer.
So now I am going to be a sub, but part of it is that my boss is thinking of it as that's when I do my coaching modeling, like the model, because I can't, with COVID, I'm not supposed to be in the room for more than 10 minutes regularly.
Oh.
And if I do sub in a room, I can't go into other rooms for 2 days, like
I'm laughing. I get
3 days.
That's so wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Just this, it's like a completely different thing, so it's mostly reflective questions with teachers, not I don't get to observe as much or see it on video and you talk about it, that thing. So, I mean, but it does make me think like, oh, wait, that modeling, having it's a longer investment. Maybe that's what, this is not going the direction I thought it would.
Well, but I
wait,
think
how did I get to be a mommy?
Yeah, no, that's definitely one of the ways that Alfie Kohn influenced me, is to be able to identify that there's not a quick fix, and then how to sort of articulate. Because I had that instinctive feeling, and he gave me some ways to articulate it or to model it. So, but it's so hard for teachers in the moment to accept that you might not actually ever see the effect that, like, they might move to the next room, and all of those things that you did to work with that behavior or to process that were still good and great and helpful, but now the next room's going to benefit and you start over.
I saw a social worker refer to it as the positive nudge.
Oh.
And and he was definitely looking more at the full range of the child's life, right? He would work with kids, how are they going to do in high school? How are they going to do after school, right? What do they do? And so he just talked about, like, it's a combination of all these people. Like, no one person is going to make the child successful. But even when a child has all this trauma, you can still nudge them in the right direction. And if enough adults are doing that, it's like you're really building their own resiliency.
Yeah.
And that's getting back to the internal that Alfie Kohn's talking about, right? But And thinking about it, I guess those external things, why people like it is because it's so immediate, right?
Yeah,
like
feels
I'm going
immediate,
to because my teacher's going to give me this or whatever, and then the day that there's no jelly bean or stick, or whatever, they're like, eh.
Or the fact that it's not a long-term change doesn't matter to you because you get to send them to someone else in a couple of months.
That's true too. Like the system most of us have, it is sort of like, how do I just put up with this kid for the year? I mean, I hate to say it that way, but I feel like I just want to get into the Ann Palo episode.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to think about that one more because I think I do want to.
I need to listen to that one again because I haven't listened to it since we recorded it. But
it's that thing of like, I try to help people just appreciate the child and then figure, the first thing we say to teachers now is, oh, the child you're having a hard time with, focus more time on building a relationship with that child.
Yeah.
Which teachers go back to that fairness, but then I'm not paying attention. I'm not spending time with the other kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, but they already have a relationship with you.
Right, exactly. They, I had some, every semester I work with a new group of grad students. So we have orientation at the beginning and then they're gone and we start with a new group. But we had one guy last year when he's, a 4-year-old, and he needed that little extra freedom. He was not going to sit in group time and he was not going to participate in these other things. And he preferred to go outside with the younger group and come and have and so we worked with that. And so finally one of the students said, why does he get so much more freedom than the other kids get? And I was like, because he's the one who needs it. Right. Like the other kids, if I said, why don't you come sit with us and read this book? And they didn't, then maybe they would get that same freedom that they were seeing.
Right. Yeah.
But if they come and join me, then they don't, it's different.
They had the freedom too. The freedom, what they chose to do is.
Yeah. So sometimes they just need fairness sort of redefined and. And thought of in a different way, but it's very ingrained in all of us. I think that idea of competition and fairness and. Definitely tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You start sounding like Marx when it's like to each, what is it?
I don't quote Marx. I'm sorry. You'll have to come up with
each child's needs,
Yes.
You're given what you need rather than.
I should know it because it's also a Seinfeld reference, but.
Ah, yeah.
Well, I know what quote you're talking about.
I'm butchering it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is that idea that I don't see anything wrong with that. And I'm always amazed when people do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I was a theater kid. I don't know about you, but for me, like there's the sports versus theater. Because like theater, it's never a competition. You know what I mean? You do the show and you hope you do it well. And the next day you're going to do it and try to do it well.
Yeah.
And two different shows can be great for completely opposite reasons, or there's no like score at the end. And and it is true that certain people get different roles, that it's not fair in the sense that everyone's not out there. Like I never went up and sang, well, pretty much anything besides the chorus for musicals. I was more, no one wanted to hear me sing, right?
Yeah.
But, it couldn't, it wasn't supposed to be fair in that sense of we all did the same thing. That wouldn't make a good show.
Right. Yeah.
But it's different than sports where different people do different things, but it's based on how many points you score. Or how many points you prevent from getting scored against you or something. And there's an idea at the end who won.
Yeah. I use sports a lot in terms when we're talking about fairness or,
okay.
Just not because I not the scores. I totally get what you're saying and I agree, but just the idea that to be fair, everybody on the team would have the same expectations, the same roles, and then none of the sport would happen. Because the idea is that everybody has different skills and responsibilities and levels and all of that together makes the sport.
Right.
And the competition piece is in there and
and it is interesting because I feel like that, I guess that's partly the thing I want to question out loud because I'm not competitive.
Me neither.
My sister is. And she also works in early childhood, I should say. But I'm curious because like for her, that's a motivator is to like win, right? and of course in our classes, there's always the kid who ran, up ahead and I got here first.
Exactly. Yeah. Or trying to get in line first. And
yeah. And it was just, what do you say when a kid does that? The kid who gets there first and has to make sure everyone knows.
Well, I mean, if it doesn't bother anybody else, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did get there first. We had a lot of boys in our class last year, and it seemed like they were, they're all kind of the same age, and they weren't competitive much else, but to get to the other door, like we moved from one classroom to another during part of the morning.
Yeah.
And there was a huge race, and it was more stressful for the adults than it was for the kids. You know what they all wanted to be first. They would argue about who was first, but they were not angry with each other. They weren't really competing. And it was the adults who wanted everything to be nice and quiet and slow and okay and fair.
Right. Because I feel like they're probably socializing.
Yeah, that's very much what it seemed like.
Instead of punching each other's shoulders or something, it was...
Yeah, right. Or I would just tell the grad students to just imagine it's a litter of puppies. Like, they're rolling on each other, and they're racing and they're yelling, and but for some reason imagining them as a litter of puppies made it more palatable for them than seeing 4-year-old boys.
Yeah, which is interesting to me. Yeah. Because in some ways I do think it's understanding, right? Of like, oh yeah, other young animals like do this behavior too. Yeah. It's not a sign that something's wrong. But.
Now, if it was bothering children, or they really were hurting each other, then it would be different. Then we would find other ways to move from A to B, or help one child develop the language and the confidence to assert themselves, or giving everybody a chance to run one at a time or something. We did put names on the floor in certain spots, because there's more waiting and transitioning than I would like in my preschool, but it's just the way we're running. So having, a spot that was their name helped, like, they could run and race, but ultimately they're racing for their own name. So it's not all right at the front door. So there's now I miss them.
Oh, my work is done then.
Yeah.
So
what else?
I feel like we could then start, because the other direction I wanted to go, maybe this is another conversation. I was just doing a workshop with the teachers at my center this week on praise and, kind of relearning that. But one thing that came up was the way we talk about girls and talking about them being pretty, or their outfit is pretty, and things like that. And I think there's a whole thing going on with gender and praise. Aside from the good job, there's also the what a cute dress,
right? Which is just like, gendered praise, like
gendered praise. Yeah.
It's still the same idea of sort of inauthentic, force of habit.
But I feel like phrases. It's one that even people who get past the saying good job, like I know for me, it's like I still fall into it, even though for this. But it's like how often, and part is the girls are already socializing. Look at my new dress. Yeah. And they're ready to say it's pretty.
Yeah. I mean,
how cute.
Yeah, I definitely try to. I think it's the same as other kinds of praise. We want to make it relevant and authentic, and not just meaningless phrases where the same kid, all the kids get the same phrase. So, I might say, "Oh, I really like that dress."
Yeah.
But I try very hard not to say, "Oh, you look so pretty," to all the girls.
I know. Me and the teachers kind of came up with being specific. So if it's like, "Oh, it's Elsa."
Right. Or look how purple it is. Or I like to say, I bet it really twirls when you spin around.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. I think just asking what they do in it. Like my phrase now is, I wonder what you'll do in it today.
Yeah. We had one little boy who would come in on special days, and he liked to wear like bow ties in his church, his synagogue clothes. And he would put product on his hair, and sometimes he would wear cologne, and but he would just say, I'm feeling very handsome today. And I was like, well, I'm glad.
Right, and that's the thing, if that's so what you're going for, then
yeah. And then he sidled up to somebody's grandma, and he was like, you can smell me. And she was like, oh, that does sound good. Yeah. So if they're asking specifically, I will give it, but I want to make sure that it's not hollow and stereotypical and that kind of thing. But sometimes it's just, you just laugh.
Yeah. And I think it is that part of, trying to want. And I also feel like if there's a girl who that's all she does is constantly she's cute or pretty, or her outfit's pretty, or, then I really want to focus on, like, either tell me about it, tell me about that outfit. Where did you get it? Something special. Yeah. Because sometimes they got it from grandma, or
absolutely. Yeah. And so just tell me what you like about that dress. Could be a really good response. Or I like to say, oh, do you think you'll be able to climb in that dress? And then it's a different conversation. But
I remember one day we were going on a hike and this girl came to show me her sparkly shoes. And my first thought was, oh man, didn't your parents remember it's a hiking day?
Yeah, it's hiking day. Yeah.
So anyways, that one I just bring up, and I wanted to at least mention, because I do feel like that's one that if I really videoed myself and watched it, I bet I'd find more lapses.
Sure. I think I would. Yeah.
Not being as specific, not being,
But I think that's a good perspective, because even you and I, who have thought about this a lot, aren't perfect. So it's okay to not be perfect. You're not irreparably damaging, probably, a child by occasionally saying those kinds of things. But it's the intentionality and the willingness to change it once you realize what's going on. I think that is important.
Perfect. And I think that's a great way to end.
Oh, perfect. Oh, good. A smooth ending. Well, not now, because I've started talking and I'll make it weird, but I did parent interviews for my class this summer. Yeah. And the parent interviews ended exactly the same way as the podcasts do. And so all my students are very aware of my authentic self now, I think. All right. This was fun. Thank you. I can't wait to do another one.
I had fun too.
Yeah. And I think it is definitely fun for me to be stretched and asked and pushed back on a little bit sometimes. Right. So thanks for the idea and for the time and for the episode.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening. Come back again next week for another episode. Bye.